Welcome to Creating the Muse podcast, brought to you by Into Pages. This is a space where creativity takes center stage and entrepreneurship becomes an art form. Join us as we dive into the stories of visionary individuals who have harnessed their inner muse to build thriving businesses and craft lives of passion and purpose. Welcome to another episode of Creating the Muse. I'm your host, Indiana Holley, and today we're embracing the essence of Mother Earth in our conversation. We have the honor of connecting with the soul deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature, a modern alchemist harnessing the primal energies of the earth. Our guest embodies the wisdom of the Green Witch, a true steward of the Earth's healing embrace. She's the guiding force behind the high-frequency tea collection, infusing each blend with the ancient whispers of nature's frequency. Joining us is Tara Hegarty, a master of high-frequency living. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you very much. What a beautiful introduction. Can I press record and keep that forever?
Oh, most definitely.
I love that.
Those images that you, it's just your whole journey that has had that beautiful, as a witness, that's how I feel when I view your work, the coaching I've done with you, the images that you sent me. I was just so blown away by, because I think originally, as you are aware, I assign a theme to the person that gets weaved throughout the magazine. And that started off as like healing, because I wanted that real energy for it being December and everyone having that energy when they read the magazine. But then I looked at your images and it was like, no, we're going Green Witch.
I love that. And there's definitely a part of me that resonates with the Green Witch, even the Earth Priestess element and that connection to nature. And I think, the collective is wanting to connect more with the nature. So being able to provide that inspiration is truly beautiful. So thank you.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And thank you for coming on the podcast today. I'm so excited to be able to interview you. So thank you. I guess what I would love to start with is I had to let you know that Creating the Muse actually came as a result of a coaching session that I had with you. So I had to let you know that, because the journey was quite not bizarre, but it just kept dropping and unfolding and dropping and unfolding. So it kind of started off with the session with you where I was talking about a potential journal and then a book, and then that evolved into a training module. So we went through all these kind of different
reiterations of it.
Yeah. So it was like a journal, and then it was a book, and then it was like, no, it's a training. And then it was like, and then I did coaching with Lara Necessity, my business coach. And she was like, oh, just do a magazine cover about the pillars of what you embody for your social media, etc. And I was like, so I did the exercise. I was like, it's a magazine.
And what a beautiful process it is, because it's not just the writing and the words, it's also the imagery, which I feel that you connect on a visual level as well. And when you flip through the magazines, they're this visual representation of that current theme. And it's so beautiful to witness in it, but it's a magazine and it's so much more, because you're doing these interviews, you're doing it on, a podcast, and you can access your work in so many different avenues. So I feel like, yes, it's a magazine, but it's so much more.
Oh, thank you for saying that. And yes, it's a magazine, but it's kind of like it's a magazine I always wanted. Do you know what I mean? Like, as a young woman, when I was, wanted to explore innovation and science and energy and frequency. So it's like putting out in the world this real eclectic kind of the inside of my brain, and see how that unfolds. And like you said before we press record, is attracting that certain kind of women that come into that field as well. So, but look, before we delve into all this, let's talk about who you are. So, can you tell us a bit about your backstory and your journey up until now?
Yeah, of course. I guess ever since I was a child, I've had this intuitive sense that there's more to life that meets the eye. And it's like there was this knowing that there was something beyond the veil of existence just waiting to kind of be discovered. However, it did take me quite some time. Like it took a while to really truly tune inwards, to really embrace this inner knowing. And I did grow up in a non-spiritual environment, and perhaps I missed a few opportunities earlier on. But I know that my path was a bit challenging because my personal compass was initially out of alignment. So I guess you could say I was a late bloomer. And it wasn't until I started to really shed those layers of ego, comparison, jealousy, materialism. A big one for me, people pleasing. That I was almost like catapulted into this world that for once I feel like I belong. And my journey of awakening began with a lot of my struggles with infertility. I had the unfortunate experience where I lost a baby, and with that came a lot of trauma. I spent a few years living in hell, is the best way I can explain it. And I did overcome that. And as I brought my children into the world, this portal of embodying my true essence has been the greatest act of service in my life. And I want the same for others. And I guess what I've come to learn, that my unique expression is the key to guide others to really honor their evolution, to really courageously embrace the journey of stepping into the unknown. And that can be a lot for some. And our human condition is to avoid stepping into that black hole, that big void. So finding that harmony with our nervous system, with our relationships, with our ancestral lineage is the key to really unlock this transformation that we all so deeply seek. It's also about embodying our feelings and needs. I think this is just the language of the heart. It's when you connect with this place, you can express yourself genuinely, and you bypass your mind and that constant analysis and evaluation that we all go through. And it brings you to the core of your essence and brings that, I guess, that authenticity to the forefront. And the other one is really understanding that your business is your guru. Like, it's birthed from you. Yeah.
It teaches you a hell of a lot, that's for
does.
sure.
and you're constantly moving through, it's constantly moving through you, and to create a safe space where it is respected, where it is honored, and it allows you to like gain these deeper insights about your mission in this world. So now I proudly stand as a business healer, a kinesiologist, a psychic intuitive, and my focus is on helping a lot of leaders, a lot of creatives, a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs to evolve their natural expression and to tap into their natural and true expression of themselves, and really start to serve from a deep, profound, connected place within. And so a lot of my work is combining a lot of neuroscience, energy techniques, modern mysticism to really foster that profound transformation and find that, I guess, that lasting harmony within, that we have this untapped resource within ourselves. And I also want to mention that, like, I lived in Canada and I've traveled through South America. I've gained like this treasure trove of multicultural experiences. Yeah. And I've personally confronted a lot of challenges, like I mentioned before, like miscarriages, infertility, navigated a lot of ancestral karmas and relationship codependencies. And I guess through these experiences, I've cultivated this deep belief that, our soul's journey has so much potential. And so my mission is to guide people back to that profound remembrance that we are inherently worthy and capable of manifesting anything that we dream of. We are the creators of our reality.
Yes.
And your evolution is your birthright. And healing from past wounds and overcoming life's obstacles are inherent parts of our journey. And I believe everyone deserves an embodied experience and an open heart. So my holistic approach revolves around acknowledging and respecting the complexities that influences people's lives, and to really approach it with a level of curiosity, compassion, and acceptance. And I guess it's my driving force is not to like fix or bypass by any means, but to just really embody that safety and belonging. And this is why I'm deeply passionate about my work. And I hold like this unwavering commitment to have peace for all of humanity. Yeah.
And there's clearly no bypassing by listening to your story by far. Like usually you hear about the spiritual bypassing, that aspect that people tap into that without actually dealing with the shadow and the real muck that life can provide to you. But firstly, my condolences on your loss for your child as well. That's yeah. So I just wanted to touch on that. But there is so much in what you just said that I wanted to unpack. But I think the biggest thing is this unfolding that I think not just from what you've just elaborated on, but for us all, we basically come into the world that pure vessel. Do you know what I mean? And then like you were talking about the first part of your journey, which was the labels and the patterning and the, like you said, the things that we absorb from our lineage and generational aspects. And it's kind of like we come out pure and then we start piling on these layers of expectation and what we perceive life to be and what we're told is good and what's bad, etc. And then and then the whole concept of shattering and breaking that it's like that exterior armor, that shell, to kind of really embody and step into who you were meant to be before all of that became, like understanding just how extraordinary you are and how embodied you are and how powerful you are and how you are the master and you can write your own fate. So I just had to,
and that's a lot. Like a lot of people
much.
don't realize that we have choice, we have personal will, we have spiritual will, and we do come into this lifetime with knowing that there's going to be certain experiences that are going to bring us to this deep remembrance, you know, our family dynamics, you know, especially the energetic imprints left by the soul's experiences as well, that we probably haven't fulfilled from previous lifetimes. They start to stem up. And, you know, there's a lot of people that say, oh, I've done this so many times. I've done so much work on my family members and my relationship with them. And it keeps presenting. It just means that there's a lot more layers there just to keep looking at. And as you mentioned, there's nothing good or bad. It just is. And we've got to approach it from this curiosity place, and coming from a question like, isn't that interesting? Like, isn't that interesting that's happening? And, you know, I think once you step back and have that observer witness kind of role in your experiences, it puts this whole different light on it. And it doesn't come from a victimhood kind of, for me, place. It comes from more of an empowered, curious place. And I think that's what we need to be doing more of, and be guided through that too.
I love that word curiosity on so many levels, like not just judgment, but the actual being curious about certain situations, or particularly around interactions with people and how they're either mirroring us or triggering us in certain aspects, instead of being swept away in the story and the ego side of that, but also just being curious and unfolding now, why is that triggering me and what is it within me that I need to explore? So I love that you use that word curiosity.
I actually have this shirt printed up that says "Stay curious," and it's just this imprint, the words of, you know, staying curious. Isn't that interesting? It's definitely a guiding thought that can help us, you know, through so much.
Yeah, especially if you're coming across something that's not kind of like that you're not used to, and it's exploring it with, instead of judgment sort of thing. So I also wanted to touch on your travels. So you talked about Canada and South America, is that right?
Yeah, yes.
So I would love, that's a very big one of my values, is travel, and from a point of view of how it changes you. So can we explore that a bit out of my curiosity? So I'd love to hear about that and your journey through traveling.
Yeah, of course. We did 6 months or more, I think it was, in South America. So my now husband and I, we traveled, we backpacked around. So we did pretty much the Gringo Trail, but we lived in Peru for 2 weeks, and we were learning Spanish with a teacher here, a teacher in Brisbane, and then we lived with her parents for 2 weeks. And so we got to experience a lot of the cultural family traditions in Peru. And then from there, we took those experiences and we traveled around, and the most beautiful sites, I think my heart belongs in Mendoza in Argentina, in the wineries. There was such a beautiful... In the wineries, yeah. It was this, it was like stepping into a portal of like just this richness and vastness of what nature was providing, like so much, so many obviously grapes, but just even the way that they respected the animals too, like they're big on their barbecues as well, and so really respecting the animals, and they'd eat everything from the tongue to the stomach, to everything. And through that, it made me realize that we can live in such an insular place in our worlds, but there's so much going on around us, and to go travel and have those experiences. My other big one was in Peru, in Machu Picchu as well. So we, a couple of days before, we did some plant medicine, and we ended up going and hiking the Machu Picchu trek as well. And when we got to the top of it, there were so many tourists around, and it felt quite too busy for us. And we ended up finding this tier separate, like down the bottom of Machu Picchu, and which kind of looked up over to Huayna Picchu, the smaller little mountain. And we sat there and we did this beautiful meditation, and it took me back to that experience that I had with the plant medicine, and this affinity and this ancestral knowledge just started to come through. And I think I journaled like for about half an hour after. And that was back in 2009. So it was quite a while ago. But it was one of the most, I keep going back to those moments, and I realize how those sacred sites carry so much energy and so much wisdom that we can tap into it. And we don't necessarily need to be at the places, because I can sit in meditation here in Australia and still receive that wisdom from those sacred sites. And then we went up to Canada, and it was a bit of a shock to the system, because we were so used to the quietness and the stillness and just the easygoing kind of life. And then in Canada, I mean, there was a lot going on, and I was there for work for the Winter Olympic Games. And so I was posted up in Whistler, thank goodness. It was such a beautiful place. And we ended up staying there for another couple of years, because the summers are so much to do. Everyone's always outdoors and travel, experiencing the trails and camping and mountain biking.
I love that.
As well as the skiing and the snowboarding and everything. But there's a place, we did a lot of backcountry, and there's this part that I remember. We had to climb this bowl, and we dropped into this back country. And I remember seeing before that a little sign that says, do something every day that scares you. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to climb, this, I'm going off piste, I'm going to climb this mountain, and I'm going to drop into this big bowl. And it was quite scary. And I remember the feeling and the exhilaration coming down. And I remember having my earpods in at the time and listening to this beautiful music, and just the mountain fresh air, and just this, the mountains and the snow and the fresh air, it just was invigorating. And if we could live in Canada, we would have, but we wanted to come home and get married and everything. So there's a lot of love there for Canada from me, for sure.
Definitely. My 101 live list is definitely to hike through Canada, and I wanted to do the Camino walk as well. So but I was booked to do that before COVID hit. So so definitely that's why I had to explore it. When you mentioned them, I was like, oh, tell me more.
There was a beautiful hike that we did called the Black Tusk, and we went camping, and it was just at the end of summer going into spring, and all these beautiful wildflowers were coming back. And I keep going back there in my meditations as my safe place. So it's like there's this natural beauty that can just transport you into this beautiful safety net for me. So it does hold quite a dear place in my heart.
Yes, it does. And touching on what you said, the sign that you read about doing one thing that scares you daily, have you been able to still keep that up since being back? Like, do you still explore that?
And it's not every day by any means. Things have kind of shifted a little bit more. I don't have as much freedom, I guess, being a mum of two, but definitely when I notice that I'm scared or there's a lot of fear coming up, it means that I need to lean into that. And what are the resources I need to do to lean into that now? So yes, it's definitely a signpost to say, hey, Tara, tap.
I love that you touched on that, because I'm very similar. I know if like, for example, when I did my yoga teacher training last year, and it was very much when you had to get up and teach a class at the end of it, and it was like that feeling that you feel like oh my God, I wish I got hit by a truck, because I just don't want to do like the anxiety that's associated with that. But now I've learned throughout, like when I was asked to be interviewed on ABC radio, and the same thing, the same feeling comes up, where your brain just feels, it just wants to flee. It just it just wants to stay safe and automatically not push you. But it's hilarious that it's the things that once you get through it, how exhilarated you feel, how proud of yourself you feel to have gone through it. And if only we could feel that excitement before.
There's a really good strategy that I use. So I write on a bit of paper, say if it's something that I'm a bit fearful of going and stepping into, I write that on a bit of paper, and I put that next to my bed. So every morning I get up and I place my feet on that bit of paper, and I resonate with that idea or that concept, and I allow that fear just to keep coming up and be met with and acknowledged. And then I just talk to it. I'm like, what do you need? Like, what resources do you need right now to be able to step into this? And so that's a constant thing that I use on a day-to-day basis to help me step into that fear and really have that body resonant with that concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I love that. I love how you're aware of how to tune in and listen to your body as well, because I feel like as such a society, we're generally focused on numbing those feelings, running away from them so that we don't feel it. But I had to let you know, yesterday I did a meditation speaking on feeling the feelings, and it was this bizarre feeling. I think my trigger was feeling overwhelmed. And it was this bizarre sitting in it and feeling where that was associated in my body. And it was like swirling like lava in my solar plexus sort of thing. And I could feel it. And it kept coming up as a wave, that feeling that you get when you get annoyed or anxious or whatever it is. But then it felt like it kept getting strangled at my throat. It was so bizarre. And it's like, what is going on with this meditation? But in yoga, it's kind of like it wanted me to open my throat chakra up. So automatically in the meditation, I bent back and opened it, and I was like breathing into it, and it felt like the swelling of the lava was coming out. So when I unpacked that, it was kind of around the having a blocked throat chakra and what was aligned with that. So I quickly got on Google and I researched it, and just the things that not dealing with my emotions, and it's like, whoa. So sorry, you speak.
No, and that's it. You just need to feel it too. You need to allow it to come up, because a lot of us seem to suppress and push it down. And then we look outside of ourselves, whether it's food or external kind of
Netflix,
social
media.
Just in it, and we suppress it. But exactly what you did is you're allowing it to show you how it wants to move through your body. So it's moved from the solar plexus up to your throat, and that process, even though it felt really uncomfortable, in the grand scheme of things, it probably was only about 60 seconds to maybe 90 seconds of
a few tears
are
releasing sort of thing.
And tears are cleansing. Tears are actually a beautiful thing. And and then, yes, going in deeper and saying, well, what are you showing me? What do I need to know about that? And I think intuition is connecting with all your external senses. You know, it's not just, it's using the body as the vessel. And I actually found myself sharing this over and over. And I actually created a course on this. And I think maybe about 3,000 people have done this course now. And what I keep seeing is that when you're being guided by these unseen forces, that are there for like your highest good, it's a powerful ally in your life and in your business as well. And so it's not just about making decisions, it's about making aligned ones with those unseen forces that have your back, if that makes sense. So
I love that.
yeah.
Your guides. I see it every time I visualize having a guide. It's always my granddad there by my side, my great grandmother. They're the guides that want the best for you and they're cheering you on. And I love that.
And you know, we live in this our 3D reality, but we need to realize that, you know, beyond that is another realm where our spirit guides and our loved ones and our teachers and our ascended masters all live as well. And we have to invite them into our world. And so it has to be an invitation for them to come in and show us. And for my business, I actually have like a to-do list, and then I have a universe to-do list. So I've got two lists that I sit on, and I speak to them and I'm like, can you help me with this part? Because I just need to have extra support here. And what they show me is they end up kind of working in their realm, speaking to other people's guides, and then those people start to come into your field. So it's working at a different level to what we are in this 3D reality. So yeah.
Oh,
It's really
and
special.
that from a science point of view really blows my mind, that whole 3D concept, because I couldn't understand it logically. And my mum sat down with me and she was having a chat and trying to explain the concept of 3D to me. And then it came to my awareness of there's history or story where I can't remember, I might be bastardizing how mum's mentioned it, but the concept of a big boat, monkeys seeing a big boat or something coming towards the shore, but because they couldn't consciously see or have the awareness to see such a big boat, they couldn't see the big boat. Do you know, it's hard to explain it, but the way she articulated, I was like starting to understand the concept of the 3D, especially in terms of you have a monkey on one side of the country that has learnt to use a stick to, you know, to get the insects out of the hole, and then collect on a collective consciousness that can happen on the other side of the world. So I feel, so could you kind of unpack that for me as well to help me understand it?
Look, the best way I can explain the 3D is like it's where the ego self kind of lives. It's like this sometimes contracting feeling, like it's where sometimes we feel like we're the victim. It's the me versus them kind of separation duality experience that we have. So, you know, a lot of emotions that can sit in the 3D might be a lot of fear, a lot of grief, hopelessness, guilt, judgment. And it's like where you're kind of stuck in the negative emotional patterns. And there's this lack of faith in yourself and that there is higher power. And then when you step into like the 4D, it's more like this self-empowerment place, you know, that can-do attitude, that positive and productive, where you've got the emotions of courage and neutrality and willingness and acceptance. And so it's like this place where you have a lot of, the best way it's coming through is like relief. There's like this sense of relief, and then you can go up and beyond that into other dimensions as well, and that's where you feel a lot more expanded. You know, you have, you know, a lot of bliss and self-realizations and self-transcendence. But to enter from 3D to 4D, you need to enter through humility. You need to admit your mistakes. And so there's this threshold of self-accountability that you need to move through. So you're right, like when you're talking about the the ants and pulling them out, you know, you need to realize that there's more, but you need to take that self-responsibility for everything that's happening in your world as well.
I was picturing the when you're talking it through, that is that seeing as the topic is high frequency, the funnel, that silicon,
Yes.
where it's kind of like
Yeah.
low energy versus high energy. And then I think Dr. Joe Dispenza he had that in his book as well, where he had an infographic where it's like when you're sitting in those lower frequencies, you become actually like higher dense matter.
Yeah.
But whereas when you raise up through the levels that you were just talking about, that then you become less heavy matter and you become more in that enlightened energy. So yeah.
Yeah. Also, David Hawkins, he has a great book called The Map of Consciousness. And it's similar to like the emotional vibrational chart as well. But he talks through that, I guess his concept is that all things are energy, and as consciousness in a human body, you are energy too. So yeah, it's that going through the positive negative space time continuum that you start to move through. So he's got a great energy scale as well that kind of explains those levels of consciousness that we move through.
Oh, thank you. We get up to the rapid fire questions. You've already answered the book, but no, it's okay.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
You'll have many
I don't know if
of them,
that's,
I'm sure.
yeah, I've got lots. I read all the time. I've always got a pile of books on
I love that
on my
so
bedside
much.
table.
Thank you
Yeah.
for I love that I can have these conversations with you. Like every time I
Yeah.
speak to you, we have these conversations, and yeah, they just inspire me because very much in my youth, I was very much a science geek. I love science. I'm just so um I've always been so fascinated, and the older I get, I realize the reason why I was so fascinated with science is because I kind of my inner indie just loved like magic and storytelling, and so I wanted to understand the dynamics of how it operates, so you can integrate the two together. And yeah, it just has, I don't know, it just tickles my brain. I just love talking about these things.
And it's about, science to me is about testing and experimenting. And that's what we're doing in life. If we can test and we can experiment with that, it can open us up to all these other different hypotheses or theories that might start to come through as
and just
well.
exploring. I think it's the explorative things and knowing that there's so much more out there that you can learn, which is, I just love it. So touching on frequency, I would love to delve into your amazing high frequency teas. I've had the honor of trying the flow, which was absolutely beautiful. I think there were elements in it that I loved, like the rose and sweet berry. Yeah, rose hip. Yes, absolutely loved that so much. But what I loved about, I think years ago, when I came to Byron, I tried a high frequency, hertz frequency water. So I've always had that love, the understanding and the frequency of what happens within our bodies when we listen to music and everything. But your journey about the teas and how you created it, can we please delve into the creative process?
Absolutely. I guess I want to preface before I kind of go into the how it's all kind of come about is that frequency. There's Dr. Emoto, he's done this experiment, science experiment on water consciousness, and where he like froze these water particles based on emotions. And so his work demonstrated that water is shaped by our environment through our thoughts, through our emotions. And us humans were roughly about 70 to 80% water. And when we absorb certain water frequencies, through water, what happens is we start to shift and our neurons start to mirror that. So our internal state is shifted. And the beautiful concept of the high frequency teas that came through for me was, I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my husband and I was like, I need to go get my journal. I don't know why. And I quickly ran to my room, came back, and I started to draw these sacred geometry shapes. And underneath them, I started to write all these different frequencies and light language and colors and shapes. And then it was really interesting. It was ingredients. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I ended up doing 4 separate ones. And I said, well, what's this? And they said, this is flow. And I said, okay. And so I then, well, what's this one? And, well, this is abundance. And I said, okay. And so I was like, well, what do I do with all of this? And they said, not now, Tara. And I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up just trusting that, closing the journal and putting it away. And it wasn't until 6 months later that I was doing a tea blending course. And I've always been a tea fanatic. My mum, if you look into her cupboard, it is just filled with teas. Yeah. And we've always grown up. It's always like, you know, have a cup of tea for morning tea, or have a cup of tea after dinner. And it's always just been part of our family growing up. And so I was always curious about, you know, how to tinker with different herbs to, you know, create different flavors. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. This is like, you know, creative, and I want to start to be a little bit more inspired through this, you know, other than just drinking other people's teas. And so I did the tea blending diploma, and at the end we had to do our final assessment was to create a tea blend. And I got the message, it was go get your journal. I was like, those ingredients. So instead of creating one tea, I ended up creating 4 teas. And with their help, we kind of started to master, like tea master, like hands down to them, because it's such a process to, you know, get everything in harmony with each other, and all the ingredients and the herbs, and all like coming together and alchemizing at a beautiful harmony. And it was like, wow, this is really cool. And I always felt that something was kind of missing from it, but I never really kind of wanted to change the recipe per se. So I just left it. And then it was another 3 months later that I ended up doing a Seishem Reiki attunement. And through that Seishem Reiki attunement, it's helping you use the energy of frequencies. And then I started to think, wow, like if I could set my frequency at certain levels, that means I could set the teas at certain levels. God, and that's where those notes were coming from. So quickly got my journal out, and I was like, okay, so this is sitting at 350 hertz. This is sitting at 400 hertz. This one's sitting at 800. And I was like, okay, this is great. But for me, I needed validation that what I had channeled was right. And I started to look at the emotional vibrational chart, and I found that the emotional vibrational chart, for instance, so flow that you have, which is like the herbal tea, that's sitting at 350. And that's all about being in the flow. And it's really that level of acceptance. So when I cross-checked it with the emotional vibrational chart, I was like, oh yeah, it's accepting what's coming into your life and just flowing with it. That makes sense. And so that also happened with all the other teas too. Like, and it was interesting because at 400, it was around reason. And then the top one, so on the emotional vibrational chart, it goes up to, it says 700 plus from memory. The presence, the chai tea that came through was sitting at 800 hertz. And to me, that makes sense. It's like this level of enlightenment, this being present in the moment. And that was quite a profound moment for me, just to almost double check if I'm kind of on the right track. And but what has been most magical is about when I started to then set the teas at the frequencies and then drink them, the sensations inside and how that started to mirror in my external reality. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And that's going back to
that research that you were talking about as well.
Yeah. So those, so once we absorb the water in our system and it hydrates our organs, it hydrates our energy systems, what happens is that our body starts to then match at that frequency. And the most beautiful part of this is that I'm getting this feedback from people that are drinking the tea and say, wow, I've just had your flow tea, and the day like just went along so beautifully, and I was in the flow. That's the best way. I felt like I was in this big water, felt like I was being carried, you know, down the river in this beautiful water element, and I felt like I was in the flow. And to me, that's like, wow, these do have such a special gift that they're giving people, because, you know, we can get out of flow so quickly, we can be sideswiped so quickly. And when we set the intention with our teas in the morning of like, you know, I want to have more flow in my world, and you absorb that, and you then your internal systems are shifting, and then your external reality starts to mirror that back and validate that intention. It's a beautiful process. So yeah.
Oh, like it, and it's just so much to unpack in what you've just said, because that's the creativity within itself. It's like, I think we expect very much as creatives to have all the creativity there and then in that moment. We get frustrated with that in ourselves, but you've just journeyed through it and listening to the pings and watching it unfold, not having full awareness until it actually comes to that conclusion. But it's such a beautiful journey that you took along the way for it to unfold.
It's been interesting, because even though it is a product and you want to get it out into the marketplace, I'm allowing the teas now to show me how they want to be expressed in the world. So it's not me forcing anything onto them, it's them showing me. So there's been certain suppliers that I've reached out that I haven't heard back from, and I'm like, oh, isn't that interesting? That's very with a curious mindset, and going, maybe they don't want to go that way, and that's okay. Maybe I need to look at a different avenue. And so again, testing and experimenting where they need to sit, and where the teas are wanting to journey, and allowing me to be that vessel to guide them on that journey. That's been like a huge like flip on its head for me.
And just the branding in itself is just so beautiful as well. Like, and when everything you do is so beautiful, like even the launch party, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and look, it was interesting because it did take me down a few rabbit holes, especially around sacred geometry. I knew a little bit about sacred geometry as well, and it also took me down the path of tarot cards, because sacred geometry are based on numbers. And so I looked at the tarot cards that are related to the sacred geometry, and also the numerology around it too. And all of those were just building this beautiful story around each of these teas. And I was like, wow, this is so much more, and it's encompassing so much more than what I thought. And there's been such a huge market with the mushrooms at the moment. There's mushroom drops. There's people that have lion's mane, and it gives them more clarity, and all of that. I see the teas similar to that. The fact that they can help shift you and find more direction, find more flow, find more a presence or abundance in your world. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a dropper. It can just be a beautiful ritual that you have a tea in the morning. So
And I think so there was a part in my life where I went through a bit of an upheaval, a bit of a tearing it down to rebuild sort of thing, and it was very much exploring alchemy and as you said, sacred geometry, like the Fibonacci, the spiral, and just delving into the
golden
beauty.
ratio.
And then like even the symbol on the hospitals was come out of the periodic table from alchemy. So that's why I'm calling you the alchemist, because this is, and then the symbols, you could also explore what was attracting me to it was like the chakra system as well. I think it's the Sanskrit chakra system that has the like just very detailed in their patterning. So so these teas are just so beautiful on an inquisitive mind kind of aspect, and the beauty of it, but also the ritual. I would love to delve into any rituals, like the tea. For me, it's cacao. I love cacao and the mushrooms, and carving out like a beautiful window and a space to look out into nature and just sit there in that moment, being very much in that moment, And I feel like having something warm in your hand carves out that space and time for you to be very present and give back to yourself. So I would love to delve into your side of rituals, because clearly these teas provide that on a massive level. So can we explore the ritualistic side of things?
Yeah, of course. I guess the way that I work with the teas is that I call in all the elements. For me, it's being in harmony with yourself, but also being in harmony with nature. So for me, I always light a candle. So I always have the fire element as part of my ritual. And then I also brew the tea. So that's the water element. And that could be hot or cold. Like I find the flow teas actually being beautiful with iced water in it as well at the moment, given that it's a hot summer's day.
That'd be beautiful, actually. Yeah.
And then I'm always obviously sitting on the ground, so I'm earthing and I'm connecting to Mother Gaia, Pachamama, and loving and appreciating where these ingredients have actually come from. And then it's the air. So I always blow on my tea, and so I bring the air element into it to just to set the intention of like, I'm here to receive. And that beautiful ritual, and it literally takes 30 seconds, if that, to do. And then I also have a meditation. So I created a lot of meditations to help guide people through that, because some people, it's a little bit harder to get out of their monkey mind and the worries and the thoughts that kind of constantly barrage us, especially as soon as we wake up in the morning. So I've created those as well to help guide people. And it's setting the tone for the day. And when you set the tone and the intention for the day, it really brings so much more magic, and you seem to be open and receptive rather than like closed and shut down and in your kind of own thoughts and mind. It's like this heart opening process that allows you just to bring the goodness of life in. You know, we're so quick to judge and to be hard on ourselves, and yet we don't appreciate the goodness of life. And you know, and that gratefulness and that intention setting and that ritual can if you get a snippet of that each day, like it can change so much for you and your whole world. You know, it's like, you know, every little step that you take leads to, you know, greater experiences and richer experiences. So, you know, that's the best way I can explain in terms of ritual for me.
I love that so much. And just to clarify to the listeners, for the bags of teas that you purchase, you do get a meditation along with it as well, which I loved when it dropped into my inbox. I was like, what?
Yeah, you do. You get a tea strainer and a meditation as well, and so a guide on how to brew it too, and a little bit more information about frequency and how they came to be.
Yeah. Oh, I cannot wait to share all the imagery in this issue of the magazine. So, and to provide all those details in there so that everyone also can have access and tap into just how beautiful of the teas they are alone, literally. The concept of what you're ingesting and the impact that is having on your cells, and then you have the meditation, and then you're carving out that ritual. Like, what a gift. Absolutely. Such a beautiful gift. So I am aware of time, so I think we will delve into our rapid fire questions.
Yeah, sure.
Clearly touching on the book side of things, but before we delve into books, I wanted to ask you, seeing as the magazine is Creating the Muse, you helped me to unfold that with yourself. I would love to know what Creating the Muse means to you personally.
Yeah. First of all, I do want to acknowledge that and say thank you for you mentioning that, because I would just want to receive that for a moment and say thank you. It's beautiful.
Oh, it's so lovely.
And yeah, so I guess creating the muse, it's like catching lightning in a bottle, you know. It's like this.
I love that.
It's like this magical thing where your imagination meets this wild burst of energy and suddenly you're in the zone. And for me, it's like opening this door to a world of like infinite possibilities. And I guess in my business, it's not just about playing by the rules. It's about tearing up that rule book and letting your ideas go on this beautiful, wild adventure and letting them show you. And the muse becomes like this ally, nudging you to think, you know, beyond the norm and turn your projects into something that makes people go, wow, that's next level. And I guess then in the everyday life, like I see the muse being that friend who's always encouraging you to see the beauty in the ordinary, that you always see the goodness in life.
So yeah, I love that.
So because yeah, creating the muse just isn't about art or business. It's this way of living that adds this splash of color to the daily grind. And it's about saying, hey world, I'm here to make things interesting. Like it's liberating, it's playful.
The spice of life.
Yeah. And it's all about turning that mundane into this beautiful masterpiece that life is. You know, life's too short for anything else, right? So yeah.
Oh, Tara, I'm so in love with that. Just made me think, like when I was researching Da Vinci's creative process so many years ago, and he takes a lot of inspiration from nature, but there was a concept where he, if he was working on a creative piece and then he became blocked or something, he just literally go and do something else completely different. And that's that spice of life. It's like going to play, and then the answer will come to you doing something completely different. So I love that playfulness in your answer. It just made me think of that. So
absolutely.
And lightning in a bottle. Like, damn, I could feel that.
And I guess from a personal experience, you're right. It is like sometimes we can sit in those real heavy states. And for me, just on the weekend, I took the kids to a movie, and I was watching some of the ads at the beginning, and all this information started to drop in for it because I was relating at it from a more different playful place. And I was like, oh, this is how unexpected, but how incredible. Like, yeah, it always comes through in an unexpected ways.
Most definitely. I love that so much. All right. To the question about the book. So let's hone this in a little bit more, give it some parameters.
Yeah.
Which is still not going to be really hard. But what is one specific book that has influenced your creative process?
It's interesting. What's dropping in at the moment is, you know, we've been talking about alchemy. Many, many years ago, a dear friend of mine gave me the book, The Alchemist. And it's by Paulo Coelho. Yeah.
Sorry,
and this, it's one of my favorites. And it's a book that if I see, say, in a secondhand store, I always buy it and always gift it. It's always one of those books that has been a guiding star, helping to really navigate my own personal and entrepreneurial journeys. And what I feel is like The Alchemist just isn't a book. It's this invitation to listen to your heart's wisdom. And it's this reminder that the universe conspires in our favor when we dare to step into our dreams, when we step into our passions. And for my business path, this beautiful, enchanting tale has been the source of resilience and inspiration. It's this narrative that teaches you to embrace the uncertainties, to dance with the unknown, exactly what we're talking about, you know, stepping into our fears, step into that void, and to really trust the journey, no matter how winding the path might be. And that's what I love about this book. It's its ability to transmute the ordinary into the extraordinary, you know, a philosophy that resonates so deeply with my creative endeavors.
And I love that you touched on that. It just blows my mind because at the beginning of this conversation, we're talking about your journey, like the life journey that you went on to become unfolding to and stepping into an alignment where you are. So you stepped through that journey aspect. Then we talked about your creative journey through the teeth, and then you raised the alchemist. I was like, what?
It reminds me of that hidden language of the universe, and it's always guiding us towards our own personal legend. And that's what The Alchemist is. And I remember reading that many, many years ago, and yeah, it's definitely an all-time favorite of mine.
And I wonder if that was the book that I read that made me explore alchemy in itself. I reckon it probably would have been because it was around about the same time. So yeah. Let's go with the best investment that you have ever made for yourself.
That's a hard one,
And on yourself.
on myself.
Yes.
I guess, okay. So I guess the most transformative investment that I've made on myself, without a doubt, has been delving into the world of kinesiology.
Wow.
You know, I used to be one of those kids wandering through life without a clear direction. I remember my parents tried so hard when I was young. They sent me to a career advisor and we did all these exercises. We had to highlight all these things that we were interested in. And I ended up pursuing a university degree and in business and event management. And little did I guess I know the missing puzzle wasn't presented to me yet. And it really took some living, some bumps, some life experiences to really uncover that path towards kinesiology, because kinesiology isn't for the faint-hearted. Like, you need to have an understanding, a little understanding of who you are in this world. And a lot of them, kinesiologists, are a little bit older, so they're a little bit more, they've got those life experiences. And I guess from understanding the mind-body connection, I did holistic counseling, was great. However, the depth that we went into with kinesiology has been life-changing. It's this fusion of science and intuition, and it's given purpose to my world. And it's like finding this hidden treasure within myself. So the investment hasn't just been financial by any means. It's been a commitment of time and energy and willingness to explore the uncharted territories of my own potential. So looking back, I can confidently say that this investment has not only deepened my understanding of the human body, but also become the lens in which I view life's experiences. So
and the lens to yourself as well. It's like locking on keys to who you are and exploring those elements about who you are. And because kinesio, as I recall, was muscle testing. Yeah, is that right? I know, I'm sure there's way more to it. I'm just putting it in very simple terms.
It's using the body, so it's tapping into the innate awareness. So it's the subconscious, the unconscious, and tapping into that part of you, and using the nervous system and the muscle system to communicate with you and show you what it's holding, what stresses it's holding. And that in itself has been a journey, because you're not only learning the modality itself, but also learning about the body, the soul evolution, but also then holding space for other people to move through that too. So it's kind of been a multifaceted kind of modality and approach, and it's really helped me understand the body and the soul at so many more different levels than what I ever could on my own, I think. So
What a phenomenal response to that question. Like, thank you so much for sharing that. I think we've come to our time. Like, I could delve into that aspect so much as well, into kinesiology, like, whoa. And just listening to what got me there was your body's innate ability to know, like the concept that your body is far more intelligent than what this mind can be at times. Do you know what? It knows you better than you logically think you know yourself. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it dives into like emotional, energetic spirituality. It goes into the your brain formatting. It's structural, so pain as well. So like, you've got to know the muscular system and the meridians and the traditional Chinese medicine.
See,
so
I'd probably love that.
Kind of everything coming together. So it's a lot of different modalities that are coming together, like cranial kinesiology, like it's similar to craniosacral therapy as well. So it's been really pivotal in my journey.
What a world you live in. Like, seriously, I think I know why I gravitate towards you. But I just wanted to thank you from the bottom of my heart, not just for this phenomenal interview that we've just done, where we've explored so many aspects that just light up things that I love to talk about, but just yourself, and knowing you from the moment that I've met you, and just witnessing your journey. And every time I engage with you, you just have such a depth to you, and you've just got such a nurturing energy that's just so beautiful. And people that are in your sphere really do feel how much you care, and that you're on this journey to at the core of it, you want others to feel the same way. Do you know what I mean? You want them to know their full potential, and having somebody in your area that it's like the biggest cheerleader that you can ever have, clearly from a business level, from a health level, from just like to be somebody as a friend to you as well. Like, you just have such a beautiful, it's radiant, absolutely radiant. So thank you so much for, yeah, just being on
Thank
this journey
you.
with me and letting me delve into your beautiful world. So
I'm getting all teary. Thank you. Thank you. I humbly accept and receive that. It's just
I
beautiful to
love
be
that.
acknowledged in that way. And coming from you, you're just this beautiful light. And I'm so grateful that we're in each other's orbits. And I am so grateful that we had a chance to talk today. And it means the world to me. And I have this deep appreciation for you too. So thank you
Oh,
very, very
thank
much.
you. Now, before we go, where can people find you, Tara?
Yeah, direct them to my website. My website's the best place.
It's a
So
beautiful website. Yeah.
tarahegarty.com. So Tara and Hegerty, Hegerty.com. And you can also find me on Instagram as well. So tara.hegarty too.
Wonderful. Thanks you so much. I cannot wait for the release of your issue of Creating the Muse on the 17th. So looking forward to
Yay.
delving into that. Thank you, Tara.
Amazing. Thank you very much.